So this is Rob Chandok from Qualcomm, and what I'm showing you today is actually the Qualcomm Talk Watch, which what we're trying to do here is actually play with the experience of having something that's always on at a glance. We based it on a couple of our technologies that we're really proud of that we expect our partners to put into the marketplace, but we built one just to see how well we could make it work. So the main part of this that you're looking at is actually the Mirasol technology. Mirasol is a reflective MEMS-based display that has really good low power characteristics. But as you can see, it actually works really well in ambient light. In fact, the more light you give it, the better it gets. You get this really crisp definition, and it has color. So, for example, I can actually move between watch faces. This is actually a watch face that gives me information about my calendar. We'll get back to that in a second. But I can also do different styles of watch faces and so forth. I can have one that has weather. I can have one that has stock prices. But let's get back to the one that I actually use. During the day, I actually use that meeting one, and then in the evening, I actually use this, which is very clean, fits with the idea of the watch kind of thing. And the idea is that you can always be upgrading and putting new faces on the watch, because this is actually a little interesting computer on your wrist. Now, it's different than a smartphone. It's not supposed to be as big, or it's not cellular connected. It actually uses the smartphone as a bridge into the rest of your world. So it uses Bluetooth to talk to the smartphone, and we're going to demonstrate the kind of connectivity in a second. But the idea is to have really long battery life, which the Mirasol display allows you to have. In addition, it has wireless charging and interaction with other devices in the marketplace using Alljoin. And we'll also, post-launch, we'll be rolling out Bluetooth-connected stereo headsets that go with the watch that will also charge wirelessly. So right now I'm going to ask Kevin to actually send an SMS to me so we can see what it looks like with this sort of always-on, at-a-glance experience. So remember, this is the thing that's going to be on my wrist. And hopefully the network will work well enough to get us the SMS in time. So the idea here is to actually have something that I can glance at and dismiss easily. So notifications on the watch stack up, and I can look at them or I can dismiss them. So right now I'm going to say, oh, I got this from Kevin. I want to look at it. So I'm going to actually scroll up, and it's going to say, what's up? Oh, and I also got new mail, which we didn't actually script, but I'm going to dismiss the new mail messages. Right? And that will get better. There should be more information about the mail as we get closer to launch. Right? And then I can also dismiss that from Kevin. Now, if I want to go back and look at it, I can do other things. This is the part of the watch, let me just do that transition, where the touchscreen itself is asleep to save power, but you can slide around to those different at-a-glance faces, and we think that's sort of the locked mode of the watch. And the unlocked mode, when the touchscreen is active, right, and there's more apps and other things to do, and there'll be more things that will unveil as we get closer to launch, we can actually go in and look at that SMS message, and if I want to, I can actually respond to Kevin. I could call him, or I could respond to them, and the response is actually things that are canned that I set in the Android application that talks to the watch, and I can say OK to Kevin, and I can send it. And I haven't pulled my phone out of my pocket at all. All right, now that's sent, and I know that Kevin's gotten it. So that kind of interaction, I can go back to my meeting now, lets us think about an experience where some things that I sort of filter onto a device that is even more personal than my own phone. And we think that in the beginning, you'll sort of say, okay, I'll send all my SMSs. And then over time, we might notice things like, well, who are your favorites in your contact list? And then you might actually even build a machine learning system that notices which SMSs you respond to and which you just wipe away, and starts filtering what actually gets to your phone, because you have a limited attention span. And we're really interested in that part of the user experience. Now I'm going to move over towards, we just got some sunlight, so I'm just going to show you what the display actually does in the sunlight. I don't know if I have a good angle. And that's one of the things that's really interesting about Mirasol, is that it actually doesn't fail. And the other thing that's cool about it is it doesn't use polarization. So even if you have polarized sunglasses on outside, you can still read this display from any angle. So the Android app for the watch actually looks like this, and it sort of is limited. It tells you whether you're connected or not. There's some helpful things there. If you had the headsets, they would be cooked up there, but you can sort of start to personalize it, and we'll go through a little bit. You can set what cities you want to see weather in, what stocks you might want to see, what different clock faces you want to rotate through, so you don't have to go through all of them. But let's look at the quick reply feature. So as sort of unsurprising, you can actually see different things that you can edit. I can add one, I can reorder them. The idea being the things that you do most often are the things that should be available to you at the flick of a wrist, and that's what we're working on right now. And then also, we expect to have developers be able to integrate to the watch through a couple ways. One is through the notifications manager on the Android device, And then the second thing is actually through the proximal networking system of Alljoin, which is another technology that Qualcomm uses. Let's also maybe look at how to charge the watch. Do we have the charger out? And we'll actually bring that over so we can see how easy is the wireless charging. In the meantime, let me show you a couple more faces. So here's one, for example, that shows the weather where you are, but also shows the time in sort of a different fashion. Some people really like this one because it spells out the words. I think it's kind of cool. There's really retro designs for watches. The idea being that you can actually have different levels of personalization. During the day, I actually want to use that meeting one because I have lots of meetings stacked up in a day, and it's really interesting to me at a glance to not have to pull out my phone to figure out what room I'm supposed to be in. There are people, well, there's the really mod one if you're into the 60s. And there's the stock price one. And notice when you're in certain faces, you can actually touch right here and cycle through different things you've set up. So I have Google and Apple and Qualcomm stock prices in there. But, you know, not everybody is looking at the stock market all the time. For those of you that want to, that's the kind of face that you might want to have. So with that, we'll actually, in a second, show you how the watch looks like. Let's take it off and look at it. One of the things I think that's interesting is we focused on thinness here. And one of the ways we achieved that is we actually moved the battery down to the bottom of the band. But we try to really keep a clean industrial design here. And there will be also a white version available. So there'll be black and white. And they should be available in Q4 of this year. And we hope that people will be looking at them. Let's look real quick at the wireless charging. So now we're going to show you what the charging looks like. So you just pop it in there, and it's that easy. There's no juggling and putting it around, making fancy things happen. And the other thing that can happen is the charger actually doubles as a carrying case for the headsets. So the headsets, to charge them, you just nestle them into the pockets over here. And then when you're done, you pull it off, and there you have your watch back.